Come nature journaling with me at the Rocky Coast in this video. I show you how to paint a landscape and do some birding at the same time. I show you some great products for nature journaling and some not so great products. And I show you how to use white markers to create the effect of waves and white water on top of your landscapes. All of that in this video. Check it out.
You know what? I love comfort, and especially with this new chair that I have for nature journaling, it's hard to switch, but every once in a while it's good to do some resistance training. So I'm here sitting on this new rock chair. There's flies everywhere at this beach spot. I'm pretty sure that there were flies mating on my shoulder while I was trying to do this watercolor landscape and then draw this bird right here. So every once in a while it's good to practice nature journaling in a situation that's not super comfortable, and that type of resistance training will make it easier for you to concentrate and do well in the field. Even when the conditions are nice, you'll do extra well because you practice in rougher conditions.
Oh, what's that? Oh, cool.
That was a little bit clumsy, but don't forget, your nature journal is also a journal. So when you deal with technical difficulties, such as managing your binocular, sunglass, lens cap combinations and trying to draw something in your sketchbook, remember that your nature journal can serve the purposes and benefits of a regular journal. So writing about what's actually happening for you, mentioning your gear, your frustrations, what's going on, what you had for breakfast, what beverage you're drinking. Writing those things down is a good way to deal with them, process them, and improve your nature journaling. So don't forget, your nature journal is a journal also, and you can use it for those things as well to great benefit. Man, these flies landing on me, it's like, it makes me feel itchy all over, and I start thinking there's things like even under my hat. But flies are pretty annoying here, so definitely getting some resistance training in right now. This is what I've got so far. I've got this bird sketch here from that quick sighting earlier. Then I'm working on this foggy ocean landscapito. I'm gonna wait for that to dry a little bit and then put some white ink on top. Now I'm going to use the technique where I draw a bird and do some birding while I'm also painting a landscape. In this case, my landscape is drying, the watercolor is drying, and I'm birding at the same time. People always ask me about my landscapeitos of the ocean that have white on them. So I use this white Posca pen and the white Uniball Signo pen for the finer lines, and with both of these I can go back over my watercolor and add white. Right now I'm going to show you some tips because using these is not totally intuitive. With the Posca pen, it's actually a paint pen, so you have to shake it up really well. I used to use the Jumbo Correction pen, which is another good one for bolder white lines, but I recently started using this Posca pen because you can get more variation in the line. So first of all, you have to shake it up really, really well, and then it's one of those ones where you're supposed to pump the tip. The tip gets pushed in and out. Also notice the cap works really well. The cap on a lot of markers doesn't work well, and that's a pet peeve for me. As you see, when you first pump it, a lot of ink comes out. This gets the ink flowing, and after this point, it's much easier to control. So now you can just go in, and with most of these, you get like a single chance. You can't really undo this, and it's really fun. So most people end up overdoing it. So start with sort of the fainter lines, like right here I'm doing the waves that are further in the background, a little bit of white water, and then add onto them little by little. And what you probably don't want to do is go back over lines that you have already created, because then that starts to create a weird texture. These flies were driving me crazy, but I was having fun. It's really fun painting with this, but one mistake is you might be tempted to push the thing down while you're actually drawing, but that will force a bunch of ink to come splurging out, and that's a big problem. So right here I try to correct it by spreading that around. I end up with too much ink. It's very tempting, you want to get a little bit more ink in a spot, and that tip, you push it down to activate it, but definitely don't do that on your drawing. You have to do that on a separate piece of paper. I tried mopping it up with a little bit of paper towel, but be really careful of that. Alright, now that I showed you what to do and what not to do, you can also use the white pen for highlights on bird eyes or coming back on bird plumage. And as you know, when you're drawing birds in the field, the birds often go away. So you can keep painting your landscape, and then when they come back, you can add some of those field marks and other characters about the birds that you notice. So you can see I'm adding a little bit more darkness to the wing tips there on this bird. And that's part of this secret technique of combining landscape painting with bird nature journaling. Now I'm adding notes. I'm journaling about the flies, I'm journaling about my equipment, I'm journaling about everything that went well and what didn't go well. So using writing is an important part of nature journaling. Speaking of flies, look at the way these flies are getting so crazy on my gouache. A lot of times insects are attracted to watercolor, but I'd never seen that before.
Dude, seriously, these flies are driving me crazy right now. If I weren't wearing these sunglasses, they'd probably be crawling on my eyeballs. So that's another benefit for having sunglasses in your nature journaling kit. So I've been here nature journaling at the coast for about 30 minutes, looking at some birds and doing a landscape beat to it. And I just wanted to review some of the products that I'm using. So first of all, just wanted to share this new solid rock chair that I'm using here. You can see that the material is very well constructed, very durable. The angle is pretty good for my back, and underneath me there is some of this sand material combined with smaller rocks that can be arranged for lumbar support. And these chairs are not very easily portable, but you can find them all over the place, especially at the coast. So I've been using that. It's not always ideal, but if you can get one at the right angle, it can work. Also, bringing like a big jacket is super useful, because if you need to, you could probably squish this in maybe into your lumbar, and actually now it's a pretty good seat as long as your bum is okay being on rocks for a little bit. So that's one product. The other thing I've been using is, these are just some really cheap Polarized glasses that I got for my Grand Canyon trip, and they come with this floating strap. That way if you lose them rafting, but for most nature journaling purposes that's not important. But having this strap makes it easier for me to go from using my sunglasses, which help a lot for the glare on the paper and the glare on the ocean. I can easily switch from these to my binoculars if I need to, and my sunglasses are still just right here. It is kind of crazy having this much stuff hanging on you, especially if you're walking around and using a nature journaling bag that has a shoulder strap. But nevertheless, it is nicer than just having to take your glasses off completely. And then I am using different binoculars than I usually use. I'm usually using the Pentax Papilio. These are Vortex Diamondbacks, which are pretty good for birding, and they are 8x42. I wouldn't really recommend these for nature journaling very much, because even with this harness, which is super convenient for hiking and for birding, even with this, it's not really possible for me to do the binocular drawing technique that I like, where I can sustain the binoculars and look down and draw with them at the same time. These also are not good for close focus. So compared to my Pentax Papilio, I think I can probably focus on things. I definitely can't get 1/2 meter, 2 meter. It looks like I can get things that are about maybe about 2 meters away I can focus on with these. My Pentax Papilio, I can focus on things that are only a ½ meter away. So that's about this far, and that's a huge benefit for me. Also, having all of these different lens caps, while it's good for protecting the binoculars, is super annoying for nature journaling, to be constantly taking those off and then having your drawing materials to deal with as well. And the fact that these are quite a bit more expensive than my Pentax Papilio, and these aren't even really that expensive of binoculars, but still I worry more about messing them up than my Pentax Papilio. Plus the weight is much more, and that tires my arm, especially if I'm trying to draw through them. So these harnesses and these binoculars I would not recommend as much, but I just wanted to test them out today. And the other thing I've been testing out is this hat. It is by this company called Shelta. I think the label is right here, and it's really good for windy situations. The front of the brim is stiff, so you still get a lot of the protection like your normal floppy hat, but in a windy situation or even swimming in the water, this will protect you. And on a day like today, it is overcast, but it's amazing how much your eyes strain, and without a hat, I probably would have had a really bad headache by now and would have had permanent furrows in my forehead. So this hat is really nice. I got it for my Grand Canyon trip that's coming up, but I really like the adjustability. This strap right here cinches on your head, and I found that I can swim in the water and even dive underwater, and just using this can keep the hat from coming off. Of course, it does have a regular strap here that you can put around your chin, that is also adjustable. And a really cool thing about it, so this way you definitely aren't going to lose it, a really cool thing that they've added is this little clip on that lanyard that allows for you to keep this out of the way, and it clips onto the back here, and that stays out of the way, which is something that a lot of other hats don't do. So you can adjust this to loosen it up or tighten it. Super useful. And there's even a stash pocket in the top. So these hats are pretty cool. I've just tried it out, and I'm using it today out here nature journaling, doing a landscape ito, drawing some birds, sitting on some rocks. Of course, my watercolor palette from John Muir Laws was a super useful tool today, and apparently the flies really love the gouache. So one other benefit of this watercolor palette is it works to feed wildlife as well. So that's a cool thing to know. So check out some of these products. Some of these might be good for you. Another thing that is super useful to have when you're out at the beach, another super useful thing, and people have been asking me about this a lot lately, is how to draw waves. So if you're using watercolor, it can be really challenging to get lights on top of darks, and one of the ways that you can kind of cheat with that is by using white gel pens. And I've tried a lot of brands of these. Don't waste your money. There's a lot of really bad ones out there, but what I would recommend you start with is these two. So for a more narrow line, I would recommend this Uniball Signo. The light out here is a little bit crazy, so it's hard to see, but this Uniball Signo, fine. And then this is the Uni Posca paint pen, white paint pen, and I believe this is this comes in a variety of tips as well, but you can see how fine the tip is here, and these are both really useful for drawing whitewater on waves, also useful for birds when you have to go back in and draw light spots on top of darks. So those are a couple things I recommend for next time you're nature journaling out at the coast, nature journaling water, or just some other supplies and products that I think could be useful for you.
Did I say there were a lot of flies here? And just a few flies here. Maybe I should be nature journaling these flies. Ah.